Welcome back to Beyond the Stats. Jazz just got done playing Portland Trailblazers.
Part of their team.
Yeah. They
Some of them.
they were missing Scoot. Who else were they missing? They were missing like
Malcolm
four.
Brogdon,
Malcolm Brogdon,
Anthony
Anthony Simons,
Simons.
and Robert Williams is out for the season. So I guess thank you. It was like playing the Grizzlies again.
Right. Right. I mean, important thing, we won, right? Another play-in tournament victory.
Yeah, we will go into Friday, our third play-in tournament against the Suns, and be leading our group right now, which I think is cool.
It'll kind of bring a new element to Friday's game, right? And that's kind of part of the point of the in-season tournament.
Yeah.
Have a little bit more spice to kind of some of the games that normally don't get that.
Yeah, and court looked dope. I thought the court looked cool. The jerseys looked cool. It's fun. Like for a special occasion kind of court, I think that's dope. Like super cool. And like you've mentioned several times, super smart because anytime you see any sort of highlights or anything from this game, you'll know it is an in-season tournament game.
Smart move by the league, and everybody knows what the trophy looks like.
Yep.
Just because it's on every single court. Smart move.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I think it's fun. I'd love to go see one of the games in person.
Yeah, that would be pretty
See
cool.
that court in person and see if the environment kind of feels any different.
Yeah, if that was the everyday court, it'd be a little bit weird, but
I agree.
it's a gimmicky move, and they know it is.
Yeah,
and that's cool.
Yeah,
they roll with it.
Yeah. So
It's not bad.
the game itself, Keontae George, third start, getting a little bit more aggressive with his shot. Obviously, still not there yet, but was much more willing to kind of pull up from three this game than he had been his first two starts. Had a nice aggressive drive and
questionable call. Questionable call.
Very questionable.
Come on, ref.
I
wondered what they were going to work on because they've had a few days off now,
right?
And had a chance to go back and kind of look at video and implement some things because up till now he hasn't really been attacking or trying to do high level things through pick and roll. It's just kind of he's been taking what's been given him and finding open teammates.
Yeah.
And so this game he was a little bit more aggressive and went downhill around the screen a little bit. Had another nice pass to Markkanen right in the lane. I mean, he has a couple of those a game that are just high level.
Yeah, 15 points, 7 assists.
It'll be interesting to see as the season goes along what else is added in, and just kind of different elements that can go just with the basic pick and roll as well as running offensive sets. I mean, we came out of, was it the second half? We came right out and had a set where Markkanen kind of peels off on the side and he finds him for a shot. Something like that. So,
and it's not a coincidence that Clarkson's 3 best games are with a true point guard with him. It's not. There is no coincidence with that. That all of a sudden Clarkson's more efficient, more comfortable on the court. Hell, defensively looks more aggressive. It's not a coincidence that all this is happening when Keontae George has been thrusted into the starting lineup.
Has way more space. You can tell that we also as a team worked on some of our communication, our switching, and how we were going to handle some of the defensive side. Now, granted, that was a compromised team, right?
Right.
But still, you can tell there's some things that we worked on, and that was very necessary, very needed.
Yeah.
And
there was
defense is contagious.
Yes, and there was a lot less guys getting blindsided by screens.
Didn't see it happen this game. And I think we had, how many steals did it say we had?
9.
There were a lot. And we held them to under 100 points.
First time in the Will Hardy era, which is rough, but yes, held them under 100.
He's an offensive coach.
Yeah.
He's an offensive coach.
But the thing is, though, this was the first game this season that we've come out and attacked the ball defensively.
Yeah.
We were much more aggressive jumping lanes. Clarkson jumped a couple lanes. Agbaji jumped a couple lanes. It's like, why don't we do that more? Let us be aggressive. And sometimes it's not going to work out, but then you're going to have games like this, and it just, all of a sudden, you're getting fast breaks.
Yeah, the transition game all of a sudden explodes, right? In one of the players that allows you to do that is Ochai Agbaji, because, man, that guy was everywhere tonight.
And this is And I said a couple times in the game, this is a perfect game to show what he can be, even when he's not making shots. Right? This is his floor.
Yeah.
Is a game that he comes out has 8 rebounds. You said
Yes.
8 rebounds, 2 steals, a block. Got his hand on 3 or 4 more other balls. Spaced the floor. Had a couple nice slashes and opened up the spacing for other people. Like he's motor. He has a motor on offense, which just opens stuff up. He's outrunning consistently in the fast break, and then defensively, his communication and his defensive just ability.
One of the things we haven't talked about that's a part of his game as well is how well and how quickly he relocates.
Yeah.
You think of Hall of Fame shooter, Klay Thompson and Steph. I mean, Steph Curry as well. That's part of what makes them both special is the way that they can relocate and shoot. Now, he's not as good of a shooter, but man, his movement when he screens or his movement on the floor and he has enough gravity that it pulls defenders all in different ways.
Yeah.
His relocation abilities are very high.
For sure.
His footwork, the way that and his speed, we've talked about that. His lateral speed and the way that he can get there is
there was
surprising.
Seriously, a play this game where it looks like he gets beat and he kind of like walks. It looks like because he's just so like, you can't beat me, and he just all of a sudden is back in front of him. He's just so much quicker than anyone else that's on the court.
His abilities are impressive, and like you said, this was a game when his shot wasn't going down, and he gives you so many other things that it's baffling the small amount of minutes that he's had up until these games when Kessler's out, and it makes me ask a question. I asked a question during the game. Sorry to be a Debbie Downer. All of a sudden, bring that up.
What happens when Kessler comes back?
What happens when Kessler comes back? What is the rotations there?
Realistically, what should happen is Tucker or Sexton is out of the lineup.
One of their minutes needs to go away.
And realistically, Clarkson should be coming off the bench. Our bench scoring is bad. It's not good. We're hoping that Sexton can be that guy, and he's just kind of putting his head down. But it also allows Clarkson to be that flamethrower and just come in and just light it up. He's been doing well. Obviously, the past 3 games, he's been doing fantastic. It's a 6-man type role that he does more excelling at, and it would help jumpstart our bench. It would also allow us to run more things at the start of games for John Collins and Larry Markkinen. The biggest problems that Larry Markkinen's having right now, his shot just wasn't falling this game for sure.
Right. First game of the season, right? That's happened.
But also, he plays the most minutes with the bench. He plays a lot of minutes with Sexton and Tucker, and it all of a sudden he has no space. He goes to drive, he's got a guard just sitting on his hip, just standing there waiting for the ball.
And another one running to him, probably.
Yeah, and so
ball.
And so you bench one of Sexton or Tucker just completely. They don't get. You take their minutes away, and you start Agbaji at the 2, because then you can run stuff for Collins and Markkinen, and then let Clarkson be that first guy off the bench and just come freaking light it up, and then you start running stuff for him.
I would prefer to see those rotations, and then for me, basically, you close the game with whoever's playing the best.
Yeah. Your starting 5 doesn't have to be your closing 5.
Right.
It needs to be a game by game adjustment. If a game like this, let's say Clarkson doesn't start, a game like this, Clarkson should finish it out even if he's not starting, because he's shooting super efficiently and he's playing good defensively.
He did more defensively tonight than he has any other game this season so far, and I think he finished 12 of 17. Very efficient shooting.
Yeah.
This would be a game that he would finish. Agbaji wasn't hitting his shots, even though he did so many other things. But I think that's where, as a team, we would be strongest. But it has me worried, and that's why I asked that question. What do we do when Kessler comes back? Because I'm excited for him to come back.
Of course.
I want to see his future, but
I want to see him coming back with Keontae George now figuring stuff out and him getting cleaner looks and more space, things like that. I think it's going to help him as well.
Absolutely. It spaces the entire floor. And this is what we talk about. Well, when we've talked about our players and our possibility of rotations is better than what our record shows.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what we mean. So it'll be interesting to see how this rotation evolves when he comes back. when Walker Kessler comes back, and how it evolves during the year, and see if we can consistently put up a little bit better defensive numbers, that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
part of me is excited, part of me is worried.
And Kessler's out for a little bit still.
They said they were going to evaluate 2 weeks, so this is his third game out, right?
Yes.
Probably at least another week.
So, yeah, we'll see. And the hope is, right, that if these guys keep playing this way, it kind of forces the coach's hand. Who knows? Maybe we see some trades. I don't know. But, that's always a discussion right now with the way our team's built. It's going to be a discussion until either the trade deadline happens or we see something happen.
Right. I mean, the fact that we've shown that we're interested in some of the transactions that have happened recently, obviously shows that what the intentions of our front office are.
Yeah.
Came out today. Obviously Zach LaVine is being shopped around. Surprise, surprise. we kind of knew this would happen, right?
Yeah.
We knew that Chicago's front office had to have their hand on the trigger there, and we're about to pull it. So that's about to happen. It'll be interesting to see what goes on. There's going to be some big market teams that are going to want a piece of that.
So it's funny you mentioned that. Philadelphia actually also came out today and basically said that they weren't going to be really aggressive right now, at least going after LaVine. And maybe you see something later on, closer to the trade deadline, that they'd be willing to be more aggressive, but that as of right now, that they don't feel like they need to be aggressive towards that, and that's going to kind of draw out.
That's interesting. I mean, they are feeling the effects of addition by subtraction, right? They got that cancer off their team. Maxey is playing really well. Tobias Harris is playing really well this season. Obviously, Joel Embiid. It's been great. I've enjoyed seeing the Sixers come out stronger through that whole thing.
And the Clippers,
are
imploding.
Players only meeting,
dude. So I was looking at a stat. Westbrook, George, and Kawhi were like the number one rated minutes together in the NBA. Like offensive rating, defensive rating, and stuff like that up until the trade happened. Since the trade has happened, when all four are on the court, they're one of the worst offensively and defensively rated teams in the NBA.
On both sides.
And then when Harden's off the court and two of the three are of Westbrook, George, and Kawhi are on the court, they're like a plus 18. It's rough.
There's some things. When is that?
Remember though, Harden is the system.
He is the system apparently. That's interesting. He shows up and things start to implode.
Because and we'll see. I would be blown away if we don't make some sort of trades, because it's very obvious we need to make some. It's very obvious that we don't have the best bench right now, at least scoring wise. We still are getting solid minutes from our bench, like Olynyk's coming out, getting decent points. He actually rebounded very well tonight. He does usually a decent job of facilitating. And then obviously getting Kessler back slides most likely Agbaji to the bench, which doesn't really help the scoring aspect, but it helps our bench play better. So
if I were to bet money, that would be what I would bet will happen.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Will Hardy benched Clarkson over Agbaji at the 2, because especially since we've shown that we only want to play Agbaji at the 3. Fontecchio is probably the guy who loses any sort of minutes.
Yeah.
But obviously some trades need to happen. Man, I just would love to see Tucker's minutes go away. He's just not he didn't play great in our starting lineup to start the season. He's not playing that good off the bench either.
And if you go back, I thought about this a few times recently, about last year at the start of the year. It was kind of him and Alexander Walker that were fighting for time for that kind of backup point guard, another combo guard that we had at that time. Yeah, I actually thought at that time that Nickeil Alexander-Walker was playing better than him. Just overall, I mean, neither one of them were surging forward to take, really grab the role. But I don't know. That's just kind of how I felt at that time. And he's actually carved himself out a role with the Timberwolves and doing pretty good. Which, by the way, there was a Timberwolves
brawl
incident. If y'all haven't seen the highlights of that,
you need to go watch the Warriors Timberwolves brawl 2 minutes into the game.
Yeah, it was. It was minute 37 in, and Draymond Green's got Rudy Gobert in a headlock.
Jeez.
Like pointed him out of the crowd and went in there and found him and starts trying to choke him out. I don't know, good old Draymond Green. But we're happy for another Jazz win. I guess we'll get back to the subject, but then Friday's going to be for real. Last time we went down to Phoenix, we laid an egg. We looked absolutely horrible.
Yeah.
So I'm looking to see of getting out there and actually competing.
I feel like, dude, just rebounding everything. We are so much more aggressive right now. Collins, several really aggressive, rebounds. Markin had several rebounds, just rising up over everyone and physically pulling it down.
Mm-hmm.
Agbaji had a play, man, where he fights over the screen on Shaden Sharp, bodies up as Sharp goes up. Collins kind of rotates and helps, and then Agbaji leaps up over both their big men, Ayton and their other guy, bodies him off, pulls it down, rips it out. Like all of a sudden we look like a team that's out here fighting, and we just don't look like a team that's dumb, right? It's got a low IQ, that's being aggressive but not really doing anything with it. We look aggressive, but it's a pointed aggressiveness. We actually know what we're doing with the aggressiveness.
Yeah, when your number one trait, when your number one characteristic of your team is grit, that usually means there's something wrong. It's good to have it, but everybody has it, right?
and that's the thing is we've over the past few years sorely missed having a couple of those really hard-nosed, physical, beat you up kind of guys that we haven't had for a few years. This feels like we're finally getting back to it. Agbaji has taken a big step forward aggressively, whereas last year he was good defensively, but he wasn't ever really in your face, bodying you hard and stuff like that. This year he's taking that attack. John Collins is freaking, he'll wrestle anybody for the ball.
Yep. I feel that we haven't had that on the team since we traded Crowder.
Yeah, Jay Crowder.
Since that moment right there, that was kind of a pivotal moment in the history of the team. But
I still think we need something like that off the bench.
The toughness is getting there. We need to have a few more pieces while we wait for some of our rookies to develop. The reason why I say some of them is if y'all haven't watched, Sensabaugh and Taylor Hendricks are doing pretty darn good in G League.
Yes.
And playing efficiently. They beat G League Ignite by 437 points last night.
Oh my gosh, they beat the crap out of them. And if you guys have the Jazz app, you can watch the G League, a lot of the Stars games. And for a lot of people that have been wanting to see, Hendricks and Sensabaugh, that's where you're going to see them right now, and they're getting the development they need. And oh my,
getting the time in, and they're putting up some numbers. Sensabaugh, if he can stay healthy, that's always been a thing, right? 3 meniscus surgeries, if I understood that correctly. That's a lot for a 19-year-old. If he can stay healthy, he is offensively and physically able. He's got the offensive abilities to be a heck of an NBA player.
He's a guy that as he develops and we start mixing some trades, could kind of step in mid-season as that 6-man role, depending on what happens. Right. But so through 2 games, first game in the season for the Stars, Sensabaugh had 27 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists. And then against the Ignite, 25 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists.
And it wasn't on hoisting up 30 shots.
No, efficient numbers.
Yeah, it was good. And Hendricks, who is much more of a defensive player than Sensabaugh is, but still can shoot the outside shot, had a decent line as well. I can't remember his numbers off the top of my head, but both of them doing well. So
I think he had like 19 and 7, I want to say. But I know he had 3 blocks.
Yeah.
Tony Jones mentioned a couple of plays defensively that he made that you had talked about that is the reason why we took him where we did.
He has some defensive abilities and length. He's got over a 7-foot wingspan, crazy lift. He's made to be a modern type of 3-and-D player. And it'll be interesting to see how he goes along. Sensabaugh, early in the season last year, showed great offensive ability, an NBA-ready jumper, an efficient 3-point shot, and a big old strong body. It's the whole thing is if he can stay healthy and learn to put in some of those defensive characteristics, increase that side of his game, he could really be tough, and our rookies could start to step in and play a role by the end of the season.
Well, and that's the thing is people don't understand is 28, getting Sensabaugh 28, we got in there because of health, because there was questions on that. before that came into question, he was a lottery pick.
Yeah, he was projected top 14 for sure.
For sure, possibly top 10.
He was really hitting it early in the season. Then he kind of started, his minutes went down during the season. I mean, he was under 20 minutes a game kind of by the time it got to the end, and had to have another surgery. So one
that,
of those
like
you
you
keep
said,
your fingers crossed.
you get that guy healthy. If he stays healthy at 28, that is a gem. Holy crap! As we start to make some moves and do the consolidating that you talk about, he may be a guy that just very seamlessly steps into that 6-man scorer role on our bench that we at that point may need. And
So what happens once the time we hit January, February? I mean,
yeah,
and if we move some players or not, or we move on from some players, maybe, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Or maybe it's at the end of the year in the off season. You never know when
right.
these things happen. But an overall strong draft already from this last year.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to see what happens. This is exciting times. Let's see if we're going to get in the trade market, if we're going to grow it organically and be a little bit more patient.
Yeah. All I know is these last 3 games have been so much more exciting than the first start of the season.
We had some games where we weren't even close, and that was a little bit tough to take. But getting a few wins out there has been against a couple of compromised teams. Which I'm looking to compete Friday at least.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is we'll see how we play, but not the worst thing in the world to let Keontae start his first couple starts against some bad teams, right? Then all of a sudden he's got some confidence. Let's see what happens against a team in Phoenix that has the ability to just go off incredibly.
Absolutely. So he's going to be matched up. I mean, Beal has come back. I'm not sure how many minutes a game he's getting now. But I mean, Keontae's going to have some tough defensive matchups.
100%. We'll see how he handles that, and I'm actually excited. I'm excited for that game. Like you said, I hope we compete, and who knows? In-season tournament, who knows?
In-season tournament, and Phoenix has really had trouble closing out during the fourth quarters out there. Yeah. Their efficiency has been shockingly low. So they're obviously a team that's trying to search and find their identity is where they're supposed to be, which is sky high, right? I mean, they've loaded up on all the players, but
hopefully we run a different lineup to end the third quarter than we have the last few games.
Man, the last half of the third quarter and first 2 to 3 to 4 minutes in the fourth. My goodness, we are
bad.
That is rough.
It's such a bad lineup, and it's just hurt. All it's doing is hurting Markkanen.
Well, they ran Markkanen with that lineup in the first half, and then John Collins was in there with that group the second
and
half.
all of a sudden he looks bad. All of a sudden he didn't get good shots or anything like that. Weird.
You're that player. You're John Collins, and all of a sudden Hardy's sending in all these players. You got to be looking over there like, mother.
Like, can I not go back and just play with Keontae? I'm getting really good. So, yeah, hopefully better lineup to close the third.
Yeah, it's been bad the last several games there.
Yes,
as a teammate, you got to be wondering. There's got to be talk about that stuff in the locker room.
Yeah, but exciting last few games. Clarkson's kind of hit his stride next to Keontae. Looks much more comfortable. Abaji, our whole starting lineup just looks more comfortable. So super excited about that. Let us know what you guys think. It's kind of been an exciting few games to see the rookie calm our starters down.
And that's not normal.
No.
That's not normal.
No.
Everybody says, rookies are so stupid. Rookies, you kind of got to put up with their crap their entire rookie. He's calming all our veterans down.
Exactly. And you guys see that, right? All of a sudden, Clarkson, John Collins, Abaji, these guys are looking so much more comfortable on the court. It's not because all of a sudden they have figured it out. Yes, but also because they're playing next to a legit point guard who's setting things up and who's steadying the offense. And all of a sudden we're getting into good sets.
Exactly. The talk before was, we don't necessarily need a point guard. We just need somebody who facilitates, and everybody does it together. Well, our facilitator happens to be a point guard.
Yeah.
So whether we're arguing about it or not, that's fine. We've got one.
Yep.
We're good, and it's rare. That's not supposed to happen.
We just need to run the ball more through him.
He does, and I think that the kind of dribble it up, hand it off to Sexton or hand it off to Clarkson so many times is a get the ball, kind of get some of the responsibility out of his hands so he's not overwhelmed at first.
Yeah.
It needs to happen less and less.
No, agreed.
He's the type of player that's not going to be like a heliocentric player, that keeps the ball for himself every time. If we give him much more usage, I think everybody benefits.
I agree, which is why it would fit Clarkson so much better to come off the bench, because then Clarkson can come in and really run the second unit and be the guy who's got the ball in his hands and a high usage rate and stuff like that. And then Keontae's just facilitating with the starters and getting good looks for those guys. It's what you need when you have starters and bench guys. That's an understanding. If you want to win championships, you need those styles of play from your starters and styles of play from your bench.
Yeah. And when you have more than one out there together, they poach off each other.
Yes.
This is why the Sexton Taylor Horton Tucker thing is like two vultures.
It's a rough lineup, and that is the concern, right? If you move Clarkson to the bench and he's just stuck with one of them, you realistically need to bench or move Tucker and Sexton. Let Clarkson be that stud off the bench, and then maybe, depending on what trades happen, you just let Chris Dunn be your backup point guard, but Clarkson gets high minutes, and then Chris Dunn's the good defender out of the two guards.
It makes sense that way, having a defender paired with him. That way, it's they're not poaching off each other and
exactly.
lowering each other's efficiency.
And at that point, you let Clarkson do what he does best.
And I think that Clarkson is the best suited for that role.
Yep.
On our team. Even though some of the commentators think that we don't like Clarkson, we just think that he has a specific role where he can excel.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to is as a starter, he's kind of like this. In that 6-man, just be a flamethrower, high usage rate kind of role and not have to worry so much about the other things. He's much more that. It's not so low and then high and then low. It's maybe a jump down for a game, but that's why he won 6-man of the year. That is where he excels the best. It's why I want to see him in that role. If we're going to hold on to him, let's play him where he excels the best.
Where he excels the best, and I would say the amount of minutes that's correct.
Yeah.
For his situation, I think that when you start to get up to 30, 33, 34 minutes a game, his efficiency goes down quite a bit.
No, for sure.
Whereas they talk about flame on, he will burn the brightest when he's probably around 23, 24 minutes a game.
No, I would agree. And then the games that maybe he ends up he closes because the way he's playing or something like that, the minutes are a little bit higher.
Right. I think that's where he's the most efficient, and that's his highest and best use. And when you're evaluating a player, whether it's a youth player, or somebody who's a little bit older trying to transition, or a full-on pro, those are some of the decisions and thought processes you have to do. What is their highest and best use?
Yeah.
What are they developing into? What are they progressing towards? So that's the discussion we're having right now, is what is Clarkson's highest and best use? And I really do think it is 23, 24 minutes a game off the bench, allowed to really facilitate and run the show, and having a strong defensive guard paired next to him.
Yeah.
And a good playmaker like Olynyk and Fontecchio or whoever it is else.
Right. Then he's got those guys who are just kind of spacing it out and moving the ball and moving themselves, and it opens it up even more for him.
And I think that even Yurtseven is a really good center to pair with him, just because Yurtseven has a whole wide variety of skills and abilities that he can do, including shooting outside.
Yeah. And
strong screener, strong rebounder.
And then even as the season goes on, and maybe this season or next season, a good guy next to him would be Taylor Hendricks.
And that's an interesting conversation. What does Taylor Hendricks develop into 1 year, 2 years down the road?
Yeah.
In the third year, we're looking at the end of John Collins' contract. What do we do there? Where's Taylor Hendricks? That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, that for sure. But yeah, I'm excited to see kind of what happens in the next few games.
I think we are developing as a team. That's the part that's exciting. We're showing signs of getting better in certain categories we need to. So we had hoped that the season started out a little bit hotter, and it didn't. That was kind of painful in a couple of those games, but I think that we're kind of developing in a couple of the categories we need to.
Yeah. No, of course. But no, thanks you guys for the comments. I mean, we like being able to have these conversations on our thoughts on Clarkson, things like that. It comes from being able to have that back and forth with you guys. Eventually, we'll get to being able to do this live and just do that live reaction after the games once we get that all set up. So keep leaving those comments and kind of your thoughts on the game too, so we can continue the conversation.
That's what it's about.
But we'll see you guys Friday.